Wow, how about that dramatic intro? That's amazing.
That was nice. Thanks, John.
Welcome to the Hopr AMA, everyone. We actually have a new platform that I'm very excited about. So thank you for your patience in setting it up. Without further ado, let me introduce Sebastian and why we're here today. So recently, Hopr published a proposal, which Sebastian actually published the proposal on the Gnosis forum, outlining the vision of Gnosis VPN, a truly private and decentralized VPN on top of the Hopr Mixnet. Super exciting. So essentially, that's why we're here today. We're going to do an AMA. What is Hopr? Hopr is a decentralized and incentivized peer-to-peer mixnet open to anyone who wants to join and run a node. So following the vision of Gnosis 3.0, Hopr is stepping up alongside successful projects such as Safe, CowSwap, and Karpathy with a new product for the Gnosis ecosystem. We'll run through the whole GIP today, but from a high level, the initiative seeks support through a multi-year investment from the Gnosis DAO to strengthen Gnosis's position as a leader in building resilient Web3 infrastructure. Gnosis DAO would invest into Hopr to build Gnosis VPN should the proposal pass quorum. A little bit of background info on Sebastian. He is, as the founder of the private data exchange infrastructure Hopr, Sebastian contributes to establishing full-stack privacy for Web3. He also co-founded two other technology startups, Validity Labs, which is a blockchain education and services company, and Sonect, a fintech company. Sebastian holds a Ph.D. degree in Microtechnology from the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich. So without further ado, hello, Sebastian. Thank you for making the time.
Absolutely. John, thanks for having me here and for giving the opportunity to talk a bit more about what we proposed there and like a bit the bigger picture.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are live right now on Discord. We're live on YouTube, and we are live on Twitter. So if you have a question for Sebastian, if you're on one of those platforms, please just type your question, and our moderators will let me know, and then I'll read the question for you to Sebastian. If you're on Twitter, you should be able to leave a comment under the spaces in the comment section. And of course, if you're on YouTube, there's the chat is live there. And obviously on Discord, there's a chat function. So to kick it off, I'm going to ask Sebastian a question because I think it's going to take a moment for people to ask. But Sebastian, how is Gnosis VPN related to Hopr and the Hopr token?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, for context, we've been working on Hopr for the past 4 years, a little over 4 years even. So to basically bring privacy infrastructure to the world, right? To complement other projects that are working on-chain privacy, we work on transport privacy to bring private data from A to B, right? And that's what the Hopr network is about. So in the Hopr network, we'll talk a little bit later about that. You can run a node which brings data privately from A to B. So I can talk to John without all of you seeing that John and me are talking. Like right now, the conversation that John and me are having is like very non-private, right? You can all follow us. Hopr is working on establishing infrastructure for more private modes of communication. And now the question is, how do you use that, right? So this Hopr network is live right now. And the question is, how do you use it? Today, we have a first product live on the Hopr network, which is called RPC over Hopr. So you can use it to prevent RPC providers such as Infura or Alchemy from spying on you as you interface Gnosis chain or other blockchains. But that's not all you do, right? Like, let's be fair, like we all use Gnosis chain quite a bit, but you also do other stuff, like you browse websites, you chat with people and so on. And these chat apps are not private. So we propose to build Gnosis VPN, which is sending data privately, just like a normal VPN for the ones who have been using a VPN in the past, to exchange data privately. So it is built on top of the Hopr protocol, which relays data. So when you use Gnosis VPN, It will use the underlying Hopr network to send data privately. So yeah, that's used for, and the connection to the Hopr token, for the ones who aren't familiar, the Hopr token is used in the network. So under the hood, we can later on talk about different business models, how you make that happen. By the way, a lot of that is open, and I'm very happy about input and feedback from the community. Under the hood, the Hopr token is used to send these packets privately through the network.
Okay, and if I'm a Hopr node runner right now, is there anything that I need to do?
Yeah, so basically, if you run a Hopr node, you don't know what traffic you're routing, right? So that's kind of cool, right? And that's what privacy really means. So you cannot inspect the data that is being sent to the network. And so you actually would just need to run a Hopr node. So you can stake some Hopr tokens. And your node, for example, you could get a DApp node. And we have a great partnership there with our friends at DApp node. You can run a Hopr node, and this Hopr node will then relay data packets, and you would earn Hopr token for doing so.
Cool. So yeah, if this GIP passes quorum, then as a node runner, as a Hopr node runner, there's nothing that I need to do. I don't need to upgrade my node or anything like that. I don't have to worry.
Exactly. I mean, you will, irrespective of that proposal, you will over time, every now and then, upgrade your node, just like you do with other nodes, right? If you run a Gnosis chain validator, or if you run an Ethereum validator, every now and then you need to upgrade your node, of course, as new and more performant versions of these client softwares are coming out. But otherwise, there's no special things you need to do to support Gnosis VPN. Yeah.
Cool. Let me take a look at the questions here. Is Gnosis VPN using Gnosis Chain and GNO? You just kind of answered that, but yeah, maybe.
Well, actually, let me get into the Gnosis Chain and GNO side, because I think that's important to understand, right? So Hopr, and therefore Gnosis VPNs, runs on top of Gnosis Chain. So everything that happens there eventually settles on Gnosis Chain. Now, we use something that's called a payment channel. So a little bit complicated, but it's basically just a means of me being able to pay John in tiny amounts. And even though Gnosis Chain is cheap, these tiny amounts would not be economical to settle, right? So we need something that's even cheaper than Gnosis Chain. So for that, we use what's called a payment channel. So I've basically this channel how I can channel tiny amounts of money towards John. And every now and then he says, okay, now I actually want to use the money. I want to flip it for GNO. I want to, redeem it and stake it or whatever. And then he settles it. And all that happens on top of Gnosis Chain. So utilization of Gnosis VPN means more utilization of Gnosis Chain. And that's, of course, important to, GNO holders, Gnosis chain validators, and everyone involved in that ecosystem.
Perfect. In what ways are Hopr and Gnosis aligned?
Yeah, I think that's an important one, really. I think, I think I mentioned that at some point before, Hopr needs some chain to settle on. And there's different ways how you can go about it. Like we could say, hey, we built our own blockchain. I think that's not the way to go, right? I think it's not the way to go right now to pull your own blockchain, even though, for VCs and founders, that's obviously kind of lucrative, right? If you just spin your own chain. But there's great chains out there. There's great L1s and L2s out there that we can just utilize. And at Hopr, we pursue this vision that people should build individual pieces of technology that they're good at and build on top of one another. And we actually checked out a bunch of chains out there before we launched Hopr in the testnet phase. We checked out Polygon, we checked out Binance Smart Chain. And of all the chains, honestly, Gnosis Chain, or as it was called initially, it was still called XDAI Chain. It was really the most resilient and stable chain out there. If you just want to build stuff and you rely on something that just works, that's definitely Gnosis. There's no other chain out there that is on the one hand cheap, Mainnet of course also works, but Mainnet is way too expensive for us, that has the block space, which is cheap and still just reliably works. And no other chain to date, I would say, has that. So that's why Gnosis Chain is a is what we've been building on since day one, and we'll continue to utilize on our journey here. So I think this is an example for a mutually beneficial partnership where we are not just coming and rolling our own chain and say, hey guys, use our shit. No, this is really Gnosis chain is the underlying infrastructure that we use. We build a product, and that product being used in the Gnosis ecosystem is something important for me.
Yeah, makes sense. Hopper's been running on Gnosis chain for quite some time now, and as you said, this is the most intuitive and easy pivot to make, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish there would be more projects, checking out not just L2s. Like L2s are cool, right? But chains like Gnosis chain are required to really sustainably scale Ethereum, at least for quite some time to come. And I think there's more people who should consider that before YOLOing into, some L2s or some other side chains which really aren't stable, and then you have to spend a whole lot of engineering effort to, compensate for that.
Yeah, and I mean, not to get off track here, but I think Gnosis VPN is a great example of a real-world use case. And if you want to build something that has real-world application, you need a network that can support that in terms of runtime and just stability, overall stability. So
100%. And just to throw in one, because you mentioned this, Gnosis VPN being a real-world use case, I just want to throw in one kind of buzzword that people talk about recently, which is DePIN. So like decentralized physical infrastructure networks. That's basically what Hopr is, right? And these infrastructure networks, I would say make a ton of sense to run on top of Gnosis chain, because especially infrastructure networks that aren't just financial, which aren't just DeFi, you don't need this kind of money Lego, which where you need huge liquidity. Like there's no downside on running that on Gnosis chain. On the contrary, it's cheaper and more reliable than other networks. So more DePIN on Gnosis, please.
100%. We have already a great history of DePIN on Gnosis chain with Athena and obviously Hopr and now Gnosis VPN. So exciting times for sure. How will the Hopr DAO interact with Gnosis and the Gnosis DAO?
Yeah, so basically the Hopr is a network which comprises these node operators, right? And Hopr has a token, and that token also has a DAO. And the Hopr DAO is taking decisions on so far like some financial decisions on which Uniswap pools should be supported. So, for example, Gnosis, the Hopr DAO made the decision to deploy quite some of its capital on Gnosis chain in a swapper pool, right? So one of the many great projects in the Gnosis ecosystem is Swapper. So quite some capital is currently deployed on a swapper pool on Gnosis chain. And I'm pretty interested in that going forward, how that's going to evolve with Karpathy now spinning out of Gnosis. That's ongoing right now. And then we have currently actually the Hopr DAO, and we literally just posted a blog post a few minutes before we started here our AMA, John, where we asked the Hopr community, are you kind of fine with Hopr Association going ahead with this proposal to Gnosis DAO? So we really want to involve not just Gnosis DAO, but also Hopr DAO in the decision-making process here. So there is the proposal which John brought up here, and we discussed in the Gnosis forum right now, and there will be a snapshot vote later on. So there's also a vote in the Hopr community to see if that's fine. Now, just to highlight here, the proposal to build Gnosis VPN is accompanied by an investment to support that economically, and in exchange for Hopr tokens. And these Hopr tokens are not coming out of Hopr DAO, but from Hopr Association, the token issuer who's behind the network. We want to really involve the community and check if everybody is on our side. So we have this temperature check, vote ongoing in the Hopr community as well.
I want to try and share my screen really quickly to highlight the GIP that's up on the Gnosis forum. So bear with me here. Hopefully everyone can see this.
Yes, your screen is up, exactly.
Okay, great. Yeah, so this is GIP 98. This is the GIP that we're referring to. Should Gnosis DAO invest in Hopr to kickstart the development of Gnosis VPN? The poll closes in 12 days, and then it will go to Snapshot, which will be when people can vote with their GNO on the proposal and when it will reach quorum or not. Let me check the channels here to see if we have any more questions rolling through. What will I encounter when I run this product with an average internet bandwidth?
Yeah, great question. So it really goes to the heart of of what a mixnet like Hopr is, right? So if you run this product, like if you use Gnosis VPN, your traffic will be routed through multiple Hopr nodes. For example, when you open a website such as, let's say, CalSwap, right? So the CalSwap web server, first of all, why would you do that, right? Well, the CalSwap web server could spy on you and link your activity to your IP address, right? Could link on-chain identities to off-chain identities. And that's something that I think very few people talk about and that I find very important. If we want true resilience, that must not happen, right? There must not be web server operators who can link your on-chain identity to your real-world identity. Now, if you run that on your computer with your normal internet connection, as most of us use, things are going to get slower, right? So I think that's important to consider. Why is it going to get slower? Because your packet is not just routed directly to swap.cal.fi, for example, in case of CalSwap, it's routed via multiple intermediate Hopr nodes there. So things will get a bit slower. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the bandwidth is going to be horrible, right? Because we can send many of these packets in parallel to utilize multiple of these Hopr nodes, but certainly latency is going to get worse. So, for example, you would most certainly not play like in a 3D ego shooter game where you want ping of like sub 100 milliseconds, because you're not going to get that. There's a trade-off, and the trade-off is between low latency, low bandwidth overhead, and strong anonymity, right? It's like a triangle. Many good things in life are trilemmas. So probably there will be a trade-off in the settings that allow you to say, hey, how much latency am I willing to incur to get better anonymity? This is strictly speaking the trade-off. So yeah, things will get slower. You would most certainly also in the first version not use it for streaming 4K videos on YouTube. But yeah, I do think that things like blockchain explorers and like CalSwap and other safe like Gnosis ecosystem projects can be used in the web interface through being routed through Gnosis VPN. That's the goal, and that's what I want to use it for.
Is that latency issue a hardware problem? Will that be solved like in the future, let's say in 10 years?
Yeah, so this is a good question, John, because it's really shows like this trade-off between privacy and latency, right? So if we have a like really big interconnected Hopr network with a ton of traffic going through, you don't need to wait, because currently I didn't really say where does this latency come from. It comes from the fact that Sebastian sending a data packet to John goes via Alice, Bob, and Charlie. Now Alice is caching this data packet for a short amount of time. She's receiving a bunch of other data packets, mixing them up. That's why Hopr is called a mixnet, and then forwarding it, right? And that is where the latency hit comes from. Now, if the nodes of Alice, Bob, and Charlie are highly utilized because there's a bunch of different users for a bunch of different use cases, you wouldn't need to cache the packet for so long at Alice's machine. So you would still not be able to play a like a shooter game or whatever that requires super low ping, just because the speed of light, we're literally limited by the speed of light, which is absurd. But It still takes too long to travel through multiple hops in a network, but you would get to high bandwidth applications. I'm pretty certain that eventually we will be able to stream videos through a mixnet, and we will be able to, watch like live streams, maybe with a little bit delayed, but that doesn't matter, right? You don't care if a live stream is like 1 or 2 seconds delayed because YouTube is anyway delayed. So yeah, I do hope we get there, and I'm certain that's doable. Once the network is more interconnected and has more traffic.
And for subscription payments, can I pay in USDC stablecoins, but also like fiat?
Yeah, also a great question. That's the part that is still not in scope of this proof of concept, which will be developed in this first phase of development here. I'm very much actually looking forward to feedback of the community. And so we at Hopr always build free and open source software. That's important to us, and I think that we are very aligned with Gnosis. And you can use these free and open source software to build a multitude of business models on top of it. So yes, it is my goal to have Gnosis VPN as a product that you can pay for with a credit card, such as, for example, Gnosis Pay, right? Or pay for it in XDAI or whatever other token you might want to pay for. But again, these commercial decisions have not been made yet, and I'm very much inviting the community for feedback on that as we roll out the first version of this proof of concept. You can even, that's the cool thing about Web3, right? So you can come up with business models that were pretty hard before. So for example, you could think about business models such as staking-based models. Maybe it is possible to pay for Gnosis VPN by staking GNO, right? That's kind of funny, right? Because if you stake GNO and run a validator, you earn some yield on that. And maybe from that yield, you can pay your VPN. So we'd have to look at the economics of all these business models. But I'm just saying the Web3 is a much more interesting space for spinning novel business models that were so far just not feasible. And I'm pretty excited to explore that part.
Yeah, super cool. I guarantee we see someone hack together a smart contract that takes validator rewards and uses it to pay for Gnosis VPN services.
That would be pretty cool, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, we're already seeing people hack on that with Gnosis Pay.
Nice.
Let me check the channels here. Can we summarize current VPN trust assumptions and what Gnosis? Yeah, let's just stay there. Can you summarize current VPN trust assumptions?
Yeah, sure. So what happens if you use a current VPN, like any of the big ones, like NordVPN, like ProtonVPN or whatever? Like typically, you're trusting the server operator to, with all your browsing history, right? So what do they see about you? Let me try to make this really clear. If you install a VPN and you use, for example, you access Gnosis Scan via a VPN, what do you gain? Well, Gnosis Scan doesn't see your IP address anymore, right? So when you search for, I don't know, your Vitalik.eth or whatever on Gnosis Scan, then they, without a VPN, they can see your IP address, and they can link what you search for, like a certain Ethereum address, to your IP address and map various Ethereum addresses. That's something I find very scary, by the way, right? Now, by using a normal VPN, Gnosis Scan does not see your IP address anymore. At the same time, you simply replace the trust in Gnosis Scan to not abuse that information, and you give it to another provider, which is your VPN provider, right? So basically, the fundamental trust assumption of a VPN is that the server operator who operates those servers is not abusing all the metadata that they can harvest about you, right? And actually, since many of them are cloud-based, it's not just the VPN operator themselves, but also their cloud provider and so on, right? So really think about it like this. If you use a VPN, the VPN server sees all the websites that you visit, all the apps that you use. They can probably infer which blockchains you use because a blockchain connects to an RPC provider, which you can see. So all that information is something that you trust any of today's VPN operators with. And that's something that we want to improve, right? By removing that central VPN server operator from the picture.
And previously with the Hopr Mixnet, if you were running a node, you could theoretically you could obfuscate the information about your RPC provider, right? In your wallet. So can you still do that as a node runner, or just using Gnosis VPN?
Yeah. So basically, now our first step into making Hopr useful was working on RPC over Hopr, right? And it's like for this very specific use case of using any EVM type chain over Hopr. You can do that today. And the next step is to open it up to not just using Ethereum wallets, but really using anything that you do in your browser. And yes, so going forward, you will still be able to route to use your Ethereum wallet privately, but you will also be able to complement that with private browsing of the internet.
Super cool. Okay, we have some more questions here. What's the main difference between Gnosis VPN and the Tor network?
Great question. Yeah, let me first bring people up to speed. Maybe not everybody here is familiar with what Tor is, right? Tor is sometimes associated with dark web, which I find really unfortunate because Tor is actually really cool technology that brings fundamental privacy on some levels to people. Now, what does Tor do? Like I already explained a little bit how VPN server works, right? You have this VPN server here, and Sebastian talks to the VPN server, John talks to the VPN server, and you don't, then they don't see each other's IP address, but you trust that server. Now, what does Tor do? Tor works kind of similar, but instead of just having one server, you have 3 servers, and these servers are called Tor nodes. And Tor then does something which also Hopr does, by the way, which is called onion encryption. So Sebastian comes and wants to send a message to John. Maybe John is a web server, right? So if I use that web server, I send kind of a multiple times encrypted message. That's why it's called onion encryption, because you have multiple shells of encryption. And it goes to Alice. Alice takes off one onion shell of the encryption layer, passes it on to Bob, who takes off another shell of the encryption, who passes on to Charlie, who finally sends it to John, who can take off the last layer of this onion encryption and send a message. That works, and that brings you some level of privacy by kind of obfuscating a little bit where something comes from. Now, it is not very strong, though, and that's important to understand. Like Tor, there's been academic research on Tor for years that de-anonymizes Tor users. How? Well, if you simply look at the packets as they traverse through the network from Alice via Bob, via Charlie to John, you can very simply see, and you can link this incoming and outgoing traffic. And you can thereby see, okay, Sebastian and John are actually the 2 people who are talking together. And this is made impossible by mixnets like Hopr, because first of all, packets look indistinguishable and are being altered in every step. And secondly, they're being mixed, right? So Alice, Bob, and Charlie, they're mixing up this traffic. And that's why, Hopr, a mixnet like Hopr, has stronger trust assumptions than Tor, right? So it's harder to anonymize traffic in a mixnet like Hopr compared to Tor. So that's why if you really care about your privacy, you want to use Gnosis VPN and not Tor, because it just provides better privacy.
Okay. Let's see here. Do you know roughly when Gnosis VPN will be available? Again, should the proposal pass quorum?
Yeah. So this is as outlined in this JIP, this is a multi-step proposal, and we will, if this proposal passes, we will have a proof of concept version that is available at the end of this year, right? So at the end of 2024, we will have a first POC version, like we said, roughly 9 months. And in that time, you can use it for limited use cases. As I mentioned before, you will not be able to use it on YouTube, right? Why? Well, because maybe YouTube overloads the network, and maybe you're so pissed off with it that you say, hey, Gnosis VPN sucks. So to prevent that and improve that situation, we said, okay, in this first phase, you will only be used for kind of allow listed individual Gnosis ecosystem services. We'll still work out which ones are, kind of working well, but I would hope that we could use, stuff like Safe, like the Safe app, or Gnosis Scan, like things that people in the Gnosis ecosystem use. And that is something that should be available within 9 months of this GIP passing.
I think we have some more questions here. Do we have enough node runners currently to hold potential hype with Gnosis VPN? So I think the question is asking, like, do we have enough node runners currently to, launch Gnosis VPN and scale?
Yeah. Also, great question, by the way. Thanks to the whole community for bringing these questions and really thinking deep about it. I really appreciate that. So also on this one, kind of hard question. How many nodes do we need, right? So currently the Hopr network has approximately 500 nodes. And the question is, how much bandwidth does that give you, right? So one of the things that we will focus on within the framework of this GIP is to improve the throughput of the underlying Hopr node. So I explained already, Hopr is going to be used to route traffic through this Gnosis VPN. So we'll increase that by at least 10x. Now, still with these 500 nodes, I think for the first POC version, that might be okay, depending how active you people are going to use it, right? But on the other hand, it might be that we run into bottlenecks eventually, because like a mixnet scales really nicely. As you increase the number of nodes in the network, the bandwidth of the network goes linearly up, and that's really cool, actually. What it means is if we don't have enough bandwidth, we simply need to onboard more nodes. So there's incentives for running a node because you earn something of the fees that the individual users are paying for that. In addition to that, we have something that's called cover traffic. Cover traffic is like bogus background noise, right? It's background noise so that packets are getting mixed and there's not zero traffic. So yeah, that is incentives, and that's why we can grow the network. But again, it really depends on the utilization. And yeah, maybe we will need more nodes than we currently have. I will add here that we currently kind of artificially constrict the size of this network. So we currently have a gated access to the network because we wanted to grow it slowly. At some point, we had actually in the first testnet, we had like I think 3,000 nodes in the network. And, that was too crazy. When you scale within a few hours to 3,000 nodes, which we've shown we can do, but various things in our infrastructure stack literally caught fire. And yeah, that was too crazy. So we said, okay, we'll slowly scale up the network to get there and grow with demand.
I have another question here. We've kind of covered it, but just to make sure we're thorough here, how will Hopr node operators be selected for the GNode distribution?
Oh, that's something actually I should get in a little bit. So one part of this proposal is giving the opportunity of existing Hopr node runners to earn GNO to run a Gnosis validator, right? So if you run a Hopr node, and we will validate that actually by looking at the activity of the node if it has actually redeemed any tickets. That's what we'll call an active node. These nodes are again, upon this proposal passing, if you vote yes for it, you will be eligible to also run a Gnosis validator. A Gnosis validator currently needs 1 GNO. And you can then obtain this 1 GNO in your validator. So we will prepare a form for providing your deposit address and receive it. So it's not just that you will just receive 1 GNO and you can go dump it. You will only receive it within your validator. Of course, at some point, if you're kind of bored and don't want to run a Gnosis validator anymore, that's your choice, and you can exit your validator and you will still have your 1 GNO. Plus, and that's important, whatever you earned for securing Gnosis chain. So it's really a kind of an additional idea that we had here to kind of more closely align Gnosis Gnosis ecosystem and the Hopr ecosystem, we already ask our Hopr node runners to run a Gnosis execution and consensus layer client. So already today, right? Because that's what Hopr nodes need. They need access. Instead of saying, hey, go to some RPC provider, we believe, like Gnosis does, in proper decentralization. Hence, we have this partnership with DAppNode. And hence, also, we ask our community to run these nodes. So, and then it was kind of obvious to say, hey, guys, if you run a Hopr node, you should also run a Gnosis validator to help us decentralize the security of Gnosis chain. And those will be selected, again, based on criteria of running an active Hopr node. We will check that. And secondly, based on, first come, first serve. So there's 500 GNO that is that we earmarked for that. There are currently slightly over 500 nodes in the network. We will define like activity criteria. So if your node has actually not been online for the past half a year, that likely doesn't count. But it will be first come, first serve for active nodes. So if you run a Hopr node, make sure it's running and it's operational, because you might earn 1 GNO and help secure Gnosis chain.
A true win-win, or two birds in one stone.
Exactly. Privacy and security.
Let me check the channels here. I think some of the questions are slowing down. Have we missed anything, Sebastian, that you'd like to cover that we haven't talked about yet?
No, I mean, I would just say we at Hopr have been building on Gnosis for a while. We have also been doing some other stuff. We've been doing research in the direction of validator privacy. So we're kind of the first ones to actually research, well, are there any privacy concerns with running a validator? And in fact, there were, and we've demonstrated that on Gnosis chain. We're doing some more research actually right now in the direction of MEV. So yeah, we're really interested in growing this ecosystem in a mutually beneficial way that's strategic to both projects, to Hopr and Gnosis. And to me, bringing these two projects closer together is something that I find awesome. That's the spirit of Web3. And I'm very happy that we don't have kind of these traditional, legacy world kind of competitive pressures, but we can show how different projects can interoperate, use their stuff on top of one another, and build and kind of open Web3 tech stack. That to me is the future, and I'm very proud to be working with Gnosis on the same quest.
The Web3 power couple, Gnosis and Hopr.
That's a beautiful way of putting it, yeah.
This GIP is live on the forum, and you can navigate there by going to forum.gnosis.io. We've also shared the link across our channels, so it's on YouTube, Twitter, and I think Discord. Sebastian, where can we find the proposal that you put up on the Hopr forum as well?
Yeah, so we actually just shared a blog where I outlined again kind of what this whole idea is from the Hopr perspective, and that blog contains a link to a snapshot page. So it's just this kind of temperature check vote for the Hopr community. So again, I don't want to confuse people, right? The actual vote that matters happens by the Gnosis community. Within the Hopr community, we have a temperature check vote to say, hey guys, are you in? And what's your opinion? So that's in a blog. I will share the link here. John, can I share that with you? I have actually a studio link here. I post it here and I see what happens, where it comes out. And John, otherwise, feel free to share that Medium link that I just shared here on the relevant channels also.
Yeah, we will share that across our channels, maybe after the call. I'm not seeing it pop up here, but yeah, no worries. And again, yeah, this proposal is in phase 2. So you can vote right on the forum in favor or against, as you can see. And then in 12 days, this vote will go to Snapshot, and that's when you vote on chain. And that vote will stay up for 7 days on Snapshot. So we will communicate all that with you. across our channels on Twitter and everywhere else so that you're aware. And yeah, if we don't have any more questions, let me just briefly check here. I think that's it. Is any closing remarks that you want to leave us with, Sebastian, or any upcoming events or anything like that you want to direct us towards?
Yeah, I would, say, obviously, please vote for us. I do think that Hopr and Gnosis are highly aligned. And upcoming events, I'm going to be at DAppCon, which is also, I guess, a bunch of Gnosis people are going to be there. So I'll be at DAppCon. There's also a more privacy-focused series called, on the Twitter handles called Web3 Privacy Now. They have events also in Berlin, like DAppCon is in Berlin, end of May. So I'm going to be there as well as in Prague on privacy events. If you want to catch me, talk about Gnosis VPN, talk about Hopr and privacy in general, feel free to check in. Otherwise, you find me on Twitter. Hopr and I are active there. Yeah, thank you, John, for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for mentioning DAppCon. It's hosted by Gnosis. It's on May 21st to the 23rd in Berlin. It's during Berlin Blockchain Week. Say that 7 times fast. And we're excited to see you there. It's going to be a great conference. Sebastian will be talking along with a lot of other super great thought leaders in the Web3 ecosystem, Ethereum ecosystem. So yeah, see you there. Thank you everyone for making the time, and we will see you on chain. Take care.
See you on chain. Bye-bye.